This is Canada Reads American Style, featuring two friends who love Canada Reads and Canadian literature. Welcome our host Rebecca from Michigan and Tara from Ontario.
Hello and welcome to Canada Reads American Style. This is Tara and I'm here with a very special guest. Hello, Finnian.
Hi, I'm happy to be here.
I'm so excited to have you here. So today I have Finnian Burnett with me. Finnian is a queer BC-based writer whose work explores the intersections of the human body, mental health, and gender identity. They are a recipient of a Canada Council for the Arts grant, a finalist in the 2023 CBC Nonfiction Prize, and a 2024 Pushcart nominee. Their work appears in Blank Spaces magazine, Reflex Press, the Daily Sci-Fi, CBC, anthologies such as Word on the Lake, the Wine Country Writers Festival Anthology, Federation of BC Writers, and more. Their two novellas-in-flash, The Clothes Make a Man and The Price of Cookies, are available through Ad Hoc Fiction and Off Topic Publishing, respectively. I first spoke with Finnian back in May 2024 after the publication of The Price of Cookies. So please, if you haven't listened to it, go back to that episode and listen to that and then go buy The Price of Cookies. Finnian's next flash fiction collection, Redshirts Sometimes Survive, is due out in April 2026, and that's why we have Finnian here with us today. When not writing or teaching, Finnian enjoys cold weather walking, Star Trek, and cat memes. Hello, Finnian.
Hi, thank you so much for having me back. I loved it when I was here last time.
Excellent. I'm so excited for this. Okay, before we get into your new book, so Redshirts Sometimes Survive, can you tell us what is a novella-in-flash?
Absolutely. It is really at its heart, it's just a novella length work that is connected by flash fiction pieces that can either stand alone or be read all together to have an arc that creates a story.
And prior to me hitting the record button, I was doing a little gushing with Finnian because I loved this collection. And what I love about flash fiction is how much can be put on one page or two pages, which led us then to a little discussion about AI.
Yeah,
Do you
so
want to say?
100%. So I believe that in this age of so much AI generated work, my social media feed is flooded with
Mhm.
AI generated work, and it all kind of reads the same, and it's this bland, banal sort of, meant to elicit an emotional response, but without that emotional punch that a flash
Yes.
fiction has. And so I think in this age of AI, that the novella and flash and other kind of, I have a friend that just put out a really interesting art/poetry chat book, and I think those kind of works are going to have their heyday because they're made from our human heart.
Yeah. And emotional punch is so true for a flash fiction. I feel like you don't expect it going in as a reader that a couple of pages or even a paragraph is going to do it to you. But it does. It's amazing.
Yeah. If you think about, like Kazuo Ishiguro takes 300 pages to give you that emotional punch at the end of like Never Let Me Go, which is one of my favorite books. But it's that same punch only in 300 words.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Okay. So tell us about Red Shirts Sometimes Survive and why you wanted to carry the Star Trek theme throughout the whole collection.
So I look at Star Trek as having saved my life when I was a kid. It was just, I was an outcast. I was burgeoning queer, fat, nerdy, definitely not very many friends. And I lived in this kind of small town where everybody was supposed to fit in and be the same. And we were poor in a wealthy suburb. So it was kind of just this confluence of all these things that made me stand out. And in Star Trek, it felt as if people were given license to be different, and it helps you envision a future where differences are celebrated and human beings have reached a state where things like your outward appearance don't matter, and poverty doesn't exist, and child abuse doesn't exist. And so I fell into the next generation as a lifesaver thing. And so many years later, I accidentally wrote a Star Trek based short story called When Captain Picard Was My Dad. and didn't do anything with it for 2 years. But I kept coming back to it and thinking, I just love this story so much. And then Pulp Literature published it. And when I was getting ready to send it to him, I said, you know what, I have a couple of other Star Trek kind of stories. I think I'll send those as well. And they published two of my Star Trek stories. And it was at that moment that I realized I'm going to start making this into a Star Trek themed collection.
Yeah, that's awesome. Fans of Star Trek are definitely familiar with this term. Maybe even those who aren't, because I feel like it's one of those ubiquitous terms now in our culture. Red shirt, the red shirt. What does a red shirt represent in your collection?
So in the original Star Trek, the red shirt was that one person that beamed down to the planet that wasn't part of the regular cast. So that was going to be the person that died. And to me, I love this idea. Like red shirts as a concept has lived on and on and on. Even though in the Next Generation, red shirts were command red. That wasn't the person that was going to be put on the planet to die. But that phrase has lasted so long. So even if you wear red to a Star Trek convention now, you're still, oh, you're wearing the red shirt, you're in trouble. And when I started kind of building the collection, the Redshirts Sometimes Survive came from that story with the same title, where there's this transmasculine person in a red shirt because they want to look like Captain, or they want to look like Commander Riker, and somebody's making fun of them for wearing a red shirt. And that was where that whole concept came from, that you don't necessarily have to be the inevitably killed off character or the inevitably ignored character just because you're wearing a red shirt.
That's awesome. Your stories are full of queer representation. You kind of touched on this already, but why is Star Trek important to many members of the queer community?
I think that's such a great question. And I just was like, I don't speak for all queers, but I will say this, that if you go to a Star Trek convention or get on a Star Trek Facebook group, that there are so many queers there. So it's not a wrong question to ask why so many queers are drawn to Star Trek, because it does absolutely seem to be true that as far as all of the different various aspects of my personality, the Star Trek is the one that also crosses over so much with queerness. And I think it's because Star Trek has always been on the cutting edge of progressiveness. And so maybe, like the original series, yes, there's casual misogyny, and there's definitely things that we go back and watch, and we know that that's not how we would do that today. Even the Next Generation, which was my formative years, we go back and watch now, and there's definitely some cringe aspects to it. Looking at You, Code of Honor, which is a story, that's a one that my wife and I skip every time we do a rewatch. But it still felt as if it was trying to make a place of acceptance. And even in the Next Generation, there was allegory, and then maybe they didn't come right out and say, queer people welcome here, but there were definitely allegorical type stories that I think queer people took as Star Trek saying it's okay to be this way. And then, of course, in the newer Star Trek, absolutely, there's a gay male couple serving on a starship. There's trans folks. There's, lesbians on the newest Starfleet Academy. And so there's definitely this just openness that you belong here.
Yeah, I love the world of Star Trek. I haven't watched any of the new ones. I grew up on the original Star Trek series because I have an aunt who, till this day, actually, she does watch all of them. I was thinking about it a couple days ago after reading your collection. I'm like, why did I watch that back? So I'm in the 70s. I'm like, why did I watch that? Because it's such a weird thing, I think, at that time for like a little girl, like maybe 5, 6 years old, to have watched. And I'm like, oh, it was my Aunt Paula, because she lived with us and I adored her and I wanted to do whatever she did. And their Star Trek has gotten into my head because of her, which I love having that background. Yeah.
I love that. My Star Trek started when I was a kid because one of my aunts is still super obsessed with Trek. Yeah. And I think that's another thing. It's like it goes through generations. I know so many people that pass it down to their children or their nieces and nephews.
Yeah. How do your characters use Star Trek to find connection and family? It just segued right perfectly into what we were just saying.
It is. I think it happens organically in all of the stories. I don't think I set out to create a collection that gave all of these marginalized folks their happily ever after, but it sort of happened organically. And I know you had mentioned that that you were so
Yeah.
glad that Teddy, I'm not going to give any spoilers, but Teddy gets an arc, and he's the only character really that gets the more than one story, and he gets to
Hmm.
carry through several stories. But as I was writing the stories and they were starting to come together, I realized that I really, although there was a lot of trauma in there as well. I mean, that's very realistic to my life, is the Star Trek and kind of combined with life trauma, that I really wanted to celebrate the idea of joy and that idea of found family. And so all of those stories kind of happened organically as I was giving my characters this sort of, whatever your life is throwing at you, Star Trek is going to help you envision something better. So at least if they aren't getting their happily ever after, they're getting a hopeful ever after in some way. And so that's kind of how it all came together. And then in the last story, I wrote in the first person collective. So we are the bridge crew. And that was to kind of encompass everybody's story in the entire collection. This is all of us at the end coming together and finding our home.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Thank you.
Like, I really we've mentioned, like you mentioned, that where it's a novella in flash, you can read them separately. You really don't need to read them as a novella. They stand alone. But I love that they do as a whole collection build a story.
Yeah, and I think I purposely in this one I got to experiment a lot more with this collection in a way. I think I was just so much more confident in
Hmm.
myself as an author this time. In The Price of Cookies, everything is a story, and in this one I really went more experimental. But I did very intentionally craft that last story so that everything could end up all encompassed in it at the end.
There is a phrase that also is carried throughout. Yeah, I think you only mentioned it maybe a couple of times, two or three times,
Okay.
but it is a classic Star Trek Picard phrase, "Make it
Okay.
so," which I
Yes.
loved. I love this popping up. That is a powerful phrase. Make it so. Can you tell us why you wanted to put that phrase in there?
Yeah, I mean, first and probably on the biggest, like the most surface level answer is that I loved Captain Picard growing up, and of course, I already mentioned I wrote the story about what if he were my dad. So the fact that it was Captain Picard's catchphrase was definitely a big part of it. But the other part of it is that make it so is so all encompassing, right?
Hmm.
That it's almost like whatever you are hoping for, we can make it happen. That we're not saying that's not going to be work, and we're not saying it's going to be easy, and we're not saying that no one is going to fight back against you. But if you can make it so, you can do it. And to me, I just think it's such a hopeful phrase, not
Yeah,
necessarily always happy, but always hopeful.
yeah. Well, and I think you said it too. Even the word "make" kind of implies that you have to put something into it. Like it's not going to be just this like little hokey pokey wish that you've put out there, and because you've put it out there in the world, it's going to happen. But we have to put something of ourselves into it.
Yeah, it's
You
not
know?
let it be so, in which case it
Yes.
might just happen, but yeah, you make it so
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. This is such an obvious question, but I have to ask it. I went through my family and I'm like, do I ask Finian this? Like, is it too basic? And my oldest, she was kind of like, it is, but you have to ask. I'm like, so I do. Who is your favorite Star Trek captain? I think I know
Oh.
the answer, but maybe I don't. I don't know.
So I don't think you do. Oh,
Okay.
this is the worst question. So this is my first interview for this collection,
Okay.
and I know I'm going to be asked this question a lot, and I should have prepared an answer knowing that this question would come up.
Yeah.
I cannot answer that question
Okay.
because I have so much love in so many different ways for so many of the captains. Of course, Captain Picard was my formative years captain, and then Cisco on Deep Space Nine. It was just this
Hmm.
like absolute wonderful font of like fatherly love and wisdom. And then Janeway, the first female captain, and
Yep.
she was such a badass. And really loved her. But these newer tracks also have these incredible captains. And, Captain Pike in Strange New Worlds, he's this big, muscular, incredibly handsome guy who shows his emotion openly and is gentle and makes, stupid dad jokes. And yet everybody still respects him because he is this kind of ideal of what I consider gentle masculinity. So he's
Mm-hmm.
strong, but compassionate. So it's so hard to say
Yeah.
that I have a favorite captain. It's like saying which is my favorite series, and I can't do that. And I know I should, but I love so many of them.
No, you don't need to answer, like, you do not need to have a specific answer. That alone actually shows your whole love of the whole universe.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So then also not a favorite character then. Like overall, like you can't even.
I would say like if I had to pick one favorite character that was outside of the series regulars, I would pick Loaxana Troy, who is played by Majel Barrett, and is just this absolute vibrant, I don't care what you think of me, Beta Z woman, who had an incredible arc over the course. I mean, she played the computer voice, but also she played Deanna Troy's mother, Loaxana Troy. And then the next generation, they made her out to be this kind of annoyance that everybody was bothered by. And then in Deep Space Nine, she carried over and became such a deep character. And yeah, so as far as just character growth and arc, I would probably pick Luoxana.
Nice. I will share that my favorite captain is actually Kirk, because obviously I grew up with him and he was my first celebrity crush, which scares the crap out of me kind of, but I remember specifically I'm like, I loved Captain Kirk. Loved
Yes.
him. Yeah.
And
And
I loved Spock in the original. Leonard Nimoy
yes.
was my first
Yeah.
crush.
Also great. I love that. And now I see him and I'm like, yeah, fine still. I'm still fine with him being my first crush.
Exactly.
Okay, here comes one of my favorite parts. I have an
Okay.
ever growing TBR and I would love for you to add to it.
All right. I'm ready for this. So I
Okay.
don't know if you remember last time we talked, I told you I love books that depress me. So like
Yeah.
my favorite books are books that just leave me feeling utterly sad. Well, with the state of the world these days, I've been turning to wholesome, make me happy sort of things. So
Yeah.
I just started reading the sequel to House in the Cerulean Sea, which is Somewhere Beyond the Sea by T.J. Klune.
Yeah.
I walked into an Indigo bookstore and I said I want something that's wholesome, magical, and gay. And they handed me House on the Cerulean Sea and 100% delivered. So that was absolutely an incredible book for me. I've also recently read some romantic comedies, like The Charm Offensive is a great little romantic comedy I just read. I
Yeah.
finally read Red, White, and Royal Blue, which is the about. Isn't that adorable? I just
Yeah. I
love it.
love that one. Yeah.
I have not yet started, but I know I have to, or I have to just give up my Canadian citizenship. Heated Rivalry.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so
The book or
um,
the series or both? Like,
both, yeah. So I don't normally read a ton of romance, but lately I've just been like, I really want something that is not going to kind of send me into a depressive spiral
yeah.
because the news can do that on its
Yep.
own. Let me read something. I even picked up this book called The Book of Delights by Ross Gay, which is,
Yes.
do you know that? Oh my
Yes.
gosh. So yeah, so I am 100% into like wholesome and wonderful. But that said, I did just finish reading this book that it was not wholesome at all. It's called Hell Followed With Us by
Mm.
Andrew Joseph White, I think. And it's a horror book about the end of basically a religious sect brings on the end of the world on purpose, and then there's people left over and they're hunting the people that are left over. It was really traumatic, but really fantastic.
Yeah.
So if you want something not wholesome, Hell Followed With Us is a great one, but
Okay.
other than that, I'm kind of going for wholesome these days.
I am actually, I love all your wholesome ones. I have actually gone kind of, well, I read a lot of different things, but I've gone full on horror in the last year or so. I've always read horror, but I am just like immersing myself in it, I think for the same reason, but because I want to see some some vengeance
Right.
sometimes. It's and I'm so yeah, I get it. I'm for same reasons, but I'm like I want to throw some. I want a little blood in there. I want a
I
little.
I teach a 10-month novel writing class, and one of the authors in there is writing a romantic comedy, and the other one is writing a horror. And so between the two of them, I feel I'm always getting either horror recommendations or romance
Yeah,
recommendations, and it makes a nice change up from what I normally read.
yeah. I tend to do like a horror, and then I'll have a literary, and then I might throw in like a romance or something a little bit lighter or a mystery to balance it all. I like a little balance.
Yeah, yeah, it's a great idea. I have never been a genre snob. I can't stand when someone's like, "Oh, I would never read." It's like, you know what? You read what you want, but don't yuck my yum.
Exactly, exactly. I'm currently reading a nonfiction. It's an essay collection put together by this. Oh, I can't remember her name. She's an American librarian who loves horror, and so she's gotten a whole bunch of American horror writers to each write an essay about why they love horror.
Oh, cool.
Finian, it is like so good. I'm just going through it and I'm like, yeah, because I've been also wondering, I'm like, why am I wanting to read this so much? I know certain reasons, but I've also loved horror since I was a little kid and would then hide the book behind something after reading it. But
Right.
I am totally, yeah, enjoying this essay collection as well.
That is so cool.
Yeah. At the end of Redshirts Sometimes Survive, you have a little bonus for us in that there are bonus stories from your upcoming book, Ravens Don't Get High Blood Pressure and Other Tales of Queer Love. Great title, by the way. Do
Thank
you want to
you.
tell us about this?
Yeah, so I don't know when that one's going to be coming out because I recently pivoted to writing a different novella-in-flash called Life in Dead Trees, which is
Oh,
all about climate change, kind of viewed through the lens of my daily walks with my wife. And so it's almost like a creative nonfiction with some liberties taken, but it's about, like when you see the stream is dry or there's a sick deer or that sort of thing. And so I'm kind of working on that as well. But the Ravens Don't Get High Blood Pressure, it's like almost done. I just need to shape it into the arc that it's going to be. All the stories are written.
hmm.
And that is just literally a bunch of, and the reason I say tales of queer love as opposed to queer love stories is because they aren't all love stories, but they are all stories about love and its many permutations. So
Yeah.
I hope that that'll be a 2027 release. But again, I'm pivoting because I think I told you I just got a grant from the Canada Council for the Arts to write my next novel, and since they'll be expecting a report on what work I've done on that in the next year or so, it's going to allow me to go live in Scotland for 3 months and do research on my novel. So I might put both novellas and flash aside and work on the
Yeah.
novel for the next year.
Well, that is so. First, congratulations.
Thank you.
And that is equally exciting. Well, okay, maybe not equally. It's more exciting for you, but it's almost as exciting for us as readers that you have all this going on and a novel. So I'm excited for that. Can I ask you like a writerly question then? Because you mentioned like for Ravens that you have most of the stories written, but you have to get the arc. So when you're writing your flash fiction, you're not writing it in the order that it's going to be in the story. Is that how it works or in the final book?
It it depends. I know that's a wishy-washy answer, but so for The Clothes Make the Man, which was my first one, that was a novella in flash that followed one character. So I did write all of the well, I wrote the last one first, but then every
Okay.
other story in that collection I wrote in order from start to finish because I was writing the arc that led up to that last story. In The Price of Cookies, I mostly wrote that in order, but there were a few I after I finished it, I was like, I think I need a little bit more here in kind of the
Mm,
middle of the collection. For Red Shirt, that was because they were so different. A lot of those just came about. I mean, I was working on that collection over almost 5 years.
wow.
And yeah, because I think I started that one during COVID. I think that was when the first story came out. So That was so different, and the only one of that was for sure in order was the last one, which I purposely wrote to be the last one, and that
Mhm.
was the last story I wrote. But other than that, that was in a bunch of different orders. So in the Tales of Queer Love, that again, just a bunch of different stories that I'm kind of bringing together for the
Okay.
collection. And even the novella-in-flash, The Life in Dead Trees, even though I'm actively working on it to fit into an arc. It's going to be separated into 5 seasons, so it's going to be summer, fall, winter, spring, summer again, and then like the last summer is the one that kind of ends in some sort of hope. But even then, I have kind of just written out what I think I want to write in each season, and I have bits and pieces written here and there, and I have like half of the last story written, like the last half of the last story written,
Yeah.
but I still need to write the first half of the story. So yeah, there's no rhyme or reason to it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you have lots to do while you're in Scotland.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay. Where can our listeners keep up with you? Like online? Is there website? What do you
Yeah.
suggest?
The best way is to just go to my website because it's so easy. It's finnburnett.com. And that's FINNBURNETT. If you type in Finnian Burnett, it also will bring you to the same website. That's the best way, and get on my mailing list. I also have a Substack and a Patreon and all of that, but the website and the mailing list is where event announcements, new classes coming out, new collections. I'm doing a book launch with Robert J. Sawyer in Calgary in May, and
Very cool.
yeah, I'm really excited. The dean of Canadian science fiction wants to do a
Yeah.
book launch with me. It's absolutely thrilling. So yeah, that's all stuff that you can find out if you join my mailing list.
Excellent. And did I see that you have something coming out with another writer too, like Andrew Buckley? Correct?
Yes,
Right?
yeah. So Andrew Buckley and I have written. We're on our third queer comedic Shakespeare retellings. So the first one is Hamlet, and the second one was Twelfth Night, and we're currently working on Macbeth. And they're just irreverent. We had an agent for a couple of years who just kind of held on to it, and so we recently made the decision to let go of that agent. So we're currently in the I'm not sure what we're going to do with this sort of
Mm-hmm.
phase. We have a Zoom meeting with a different agent next week, so there's a possibility that we'll go there. But if that doesn't happen, we're probably going to start submitting just directly to some mid-sized Canadian publishers. But yeah, I absolutely love
Yeah.
writing with Andrew, mainly because so much of the stuff I write on my own is sort of trauma based and really deeply emotional. And then Andrew and I go and just write the most absurdist comedy, and so it gives me that balance where if I'm in a deep dark writing slump from working on my own stuff for an hour or two, then I can go write with Andrew and come out of it laughing.
Amazing. I'm throwing this out here now, and this is a no pressure time wise. But when you two have something out there together that's in the world, let me
Yes.
know because I am fascinated when authors write together. How that
Okay.
works. Like I love the whole irreverent Shakespeare thing anyway, so I'm in for that. And then I can also pick your brain about how you do it together because that's just very cool.
We would love to. We've gone and given classes together at some writing conferences, and we've done a couple master classes together, and we did a joint sort of authors in conversation with at the last one, Words Collided. So I think that I can say for sure that we would come talk to you about that when
Okay,
that book is
awesome.
out.
Okay, I'm putting it in my calendar soon.
All right, I promise not to forget you,
Awesome.
100%.
I won't let you.
No, absolutely not. We'll be hounding each other anyway for horror recommendations and
Oh,
romance
yes. Yeah,
recommendations.
and gay romance or queer romance, throw it all at me. Whatever you're reading that's cozy and lovely.
Perfect. And
Yep,
I'll be listening to you during Canada Reads anyway.
I know. So,
Yeah.
have you read any of the books? Sorry, we're going to go off topic.
We can go off topic.
Yeah.
Only a Cure for Drowning.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And also, that's the one that I want to win, but also because I'm connected with the author on social media.
Yes.
But I haven't read the others. My goal is usually to try to read the short list.
Hmm.
So yeah, but Heated Rivalry, that was on the long list and didn't make it to the short list, but
I
that's
know.
kind of next on my to be read list.
Yeah.
So yeah.
When you've read, I haven't read the book. When you've read it,
Okay.
let me know what you think of the book.
Okay.
Because I can highly recommend the series because I am
Okay.
infatuated with those two men. It's like my whole family's like, enough with the heated rivalry. And I'm like, I cannot. So I want to know how the book compares, what you think
I
of the
know.
book. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. I know that like my 80-year-old mother is obsessed with this series. So.
Crazy. It's so good because I'm not a strong romance reader / watcher. And so I was kind of like, whatever,
Yeah.
And then I had a friend who started watching it and she was just like, just watch it. It's amazing. And then I was like, fine. And I think half into the first episode, I'm like, done. I'm like, I'm in. Like, clear the calendar. I'm going on the elliptical so I can watch Heated Rivalry all by myself.
Perfect. All right. Well, we'll watch the first episode
Okay.
and let you know what we think.
Please do. Okay. Thank you so much, Finnian.
Thank you so much.
Okay. And happy reading, everyone.
Thank you for joining us on our bookish journey. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing Canada Reads American Style wherever you listen. You can connect with the podcast and Rebecca on Instagram at Canada Reads American Style and with Tara at On a Branch Reads. Until next time, keep reading.